For as long as I could remember, I've always enjoyed being f***ing confused. Okay, where do we even begin? Oh, I know. Everyone, everywhere has secrets. Did you know that everyone has special powers, and they've kept it a secret from me my entire life? But I won't stand for that. That's why I made a helmet. I call it Machine That Lets Me Read People's Minds When I Want To, or Psychopomp for short. But something happened when I put it on. It didn't let me read people's minds, but it did let me see something else. A world that was hidden from me, that everyone knew about. A world hidden in plain sight with all sorts of animals and creatures and dead bodies. There are catacombs hidden under every public government building. I will not allow any more secrets to be kept from me. Yeah, this is Psychopomp, specifically Psychopomp Gold, which is kind of a remaster, remake, re-release of the original Psychopomp that was put on Steam with additional content on it, as well as a teaser for something interesting at the end of the game if you meet certain criteria, but we'll cover that later. So what specifically is Psychopomp? Fucking weird is what this game is. It is a dungeon crawler point-and-click survival horror puzzle game where the majority of your interactions you have in this game can be summed up as you enter a room, see some ungodly horror that you can't fully understand, and then audibly go, okay, before attempting to smash everything you see with a ball-peen hammer. This game is obtuse. It is unwieldy. It is gross, and it is so goddamn charming, you probably should play this. If you haven't, please pick it up. It's a tough game, but it's really fun. This game is a schizo nightmare of a half-remembered anime you saw on some obscure television channel in the early 2000s when you were up past your bedtime. In short, it's probably one of the weirdest and funnest experiences I've ever had going in raw in a long-ass while. Speaking of going in raw, this is Vina. Her name is actually a lot longer than that. That's just the shortened version, and I am going to fuck it up once we actually learn what her full name is. But for now, her name is Vina. She is, deranged and likely has several pairs of psych ward grippy socks in her closet just for funsies. She wears the helmet and likes hitting things with a hammer. Okay, so let's jump into the muck of this game and go from there. So first and foremost, it is first-person tank controls. Fucking yikes. You have 4 options and an inventory button. Option 1, look at thing. Option 2, talk to thing. Option 3, touch thing, also pick up thing. And 4, hammer. You're going to use hammer a lot. These are the mechanics, and you are supposed to use this area to sort of function as a pseudo-tutorial. If you look up at the sky, you can see that things aren't necessarily right in this world, as the moon isn't the moon, if you couldn't tell, and is actually the Earth with the big fucking hole in it. I wonder how that got like that. I wonder where you are. Nothing really to note here, aside from a sad crying girl you can talk to, or hammer if you're a monster. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but there's also this little dog. He barks at you. If you talk to him enough, he opens. Ah, hello, King of Dogs. It's nice to meet you. Quite the lovely day night we have here on Moon Earth today. Nice. Well, anyway, you get to the stage selection screen, and once you get there, you see the first 3 levels, which are government buildings, which if you go there, you're supposed to find some elevator that leads you to some underground hidden catacomb that apparently has shit that you're not supposed to be seeing, but thanks to your magic helmet, you can. And it's time for you to just uncover something. Vina seems to know what's going on. You don't, so trust her. So we're going to go to the first area, which is the sewage treatment plant. Yummy. Okay, actually, wait a sec. Before we hop in, there is a few other features I should explain here. For one, there's a call option at the bottom where you can make phone calls to people, though we will discuss this a bit later. Then you have, home? I assume Vina's home. Let's give that a check before level 1. Might be important. And it's an empty room with an eyeball blocking the exit. Not much else other than a radio and a bed, though to be fair, in today's housing market, this would still run you probably a couple grand a month. Though it's pretty great because it comes with free crackhead fights outside, so that's pretty fun as far as entertainment goes. Okay, so enough of that. Into the sewers we go. So every level kind of starts the same, with Vina showing showing up in the basic location that's described, but with the power of the Psychopomp, you find that somewhere in the building is hidden an elevator that leads to the more complex actual secret dungeon below. Now, why does Vina want to go there? It's both complicated, confusing, and weird, so let's boogie. Also, shout out to one of the best lines in the game. It's not hard to enter a public building. The buffoon who invented locks and windows has obviously never heard of a hammer. God, this woman is perfect. Okay, after wandering around the main floor for a minute, we find the elevator, and we head on down to, Deep Ground Fantasy Dungeon? Okay, it's a bit of a vibe, but I kind of like it. Moss-covered stone walls and, kind of confusing geography. I actually should note this game is kind of disorienting at the best of times. It'll take a bit to kind of orient yourself in general, but once you get there, you kind of figure it out, right? Upon looking around a bit, you find this thing. It's a double-stalked thing with anime girl faces that seems pretty excited to meet you, and if you touch it, it tries to entangle you, which, okay, I'm not gonna deal with that, so get fucked, you get the hammer. Back to exploring we go, down a flight of stairs, and oh sweet Jesus, what is that? Oh, well, hammer works on all things, it seems. Good to know. That was harrowing. But regardless, from there, because I'm a big dick baller who can piece together any puzzle, we find a secrety meat wall that, once again, we solve with the hammer, and we find a key. I recognize this key immediately, and you should too, as the eye on the side of it is actually similar to the eye that was on the door in our home. So, put a pin in that for later, because we're going to go back to the room once again. For now, we have to kind of accomplish the main mission of this map, which is to execute the Queen of the Nuggets, which is what these things are called, the little guys with the masks. Not the stocked things, those are different, I guess. She has grown old and wishes to be executed so that a new queen may be erected, and thus the quest is to kill her, with the guillotine floating above her head being the obvious option. Also, shout out to the mini quest beforehand that you need to go through in order to get to the Queen's chamber. You have to find the purple key that opens the door to it. In order to do so, you have to find the person that the Queen trusted the key to, which is someone labeled biggest fan, and their voice clip makes them sound like they are a character from Smiling Friends, which I think is kind of funny. He is so damn happy that he has the key that it's stated in his dialogue that if someone were to take it, he would probably explode. So obviously, we have to kill him with hammers and then take it. So I do that. But fun fact, if you take it before hammering him, he actually does explode and leaves you at 1 health no matter where you're at, which is horrible, but whatever. Key acquired and queen killing quest accepted, you head off to a glorious journey to murder some nugget monster. I get lost a lot in this game, you'll probably notice if you see me running into walls, but I eventually find a closed off drawbridge that seems to be lowered into the water below, and you find this weird old lady creature thing here. She's apparently what is referred to as a Thrate, which is actually the first major race that you find in the game that isn't just some mutant. This doesn't look like a meme, this looks like an actually defined creature. This one is apparently incredibly old, and from what I saw, there was another one right next to me walking, and that seemed a little bit more upright walking. This one just talks about random nonsense, and we turn over to see the other when, and golly fuck, what the fuck is that? Why are her tits that way? Jesus, whose idea was it to make the lizards big old thickums like that? Damn. Well, you have yourself a lovely day, ma'am. Okay, well, it's actually pretty simple to finally accomplish this. The drawbridge is kind of important to the Killing the Queen quest. You gotta open another door after finding some rusted key. There's a stairwell that you need to find that leads to a lever that will raise the drawbridge. You gotta clap a few creatures with your hammer on the way there. Pull the lever, drawbridge goes up, go by, say hi to Tits McGee from earlier, give him one last little pass before you head back to go find your handiwork. Pull the lever, queen dies, you hear it in the distance. Head back to the throne room, the nuggets are gone, the queen is dead, and a thing is there. It's an egg of the earth. Okay, that makes sense. What are you doing with it, Vina? Throw it down a pit. Okay, to hell with you, little embryo creature. I didn't even want you anyway, I guess. And this takes us back to the menu. Now, we have some choices to make, as we discussed before. We found that key, so let's go back and check out our home and see what we can uncover. See, each of these emerald keys is used to unlock a new section of your home. These are kind of plot critical if you want to get the whole idea of the game's lore. So I'm gonna try to get every last one of them unless it's annoying. Just walk up to the floaty eye if you have an unused key and boom, you've entered the next area. So let's just see what area Vina was living in, and it's kind of a shithole, I guess. Neat. I guess that's why the rent is so reasonable around here. Regardless, there really isn't too much here. Only this dude on the left who is a total fucking downer, and this machine on the right who is measuring brain bullshit that I am far too stupid to understand. We found another blocked off door, and thus we must continue the next level, which is the children's hospital, which that is a bit morbid, I will admit, but you know what? Fuck it, we ball. We walk into the next level, and it is kind of like the sewage plant. It looks relatively normal from the outset, and Vina has some choice words to say about the hospital smelling like Elmer's glue, and bleach, which, although reductionist, is factually correct. But yeah, we inevitably find the elevator and make our way down into the true hospital, and it is like, okay, how do I even say this? But like, you ever just go into this place in a video game or this spot in a book where you feel like the author of a specific piece of media is trying to say something, but you're just too stupid to figure it out on your own? So you put in what you think it actually means, and you know you're wrong, but you get more meaning out of it that way. Yeah, that is what I see with the hospital. I feel like there's something going on here, but I don't know, I just think it's cool. So the hospital has two major areas. The big main quest area involving the life supports of ancient important people, and neo-parasitics. The main quest has you first meeting the nurses. I call them whole nurses, as calling them nurses is like referring to Jotaro Kujo from JoJo as a marine biologist. Yes, you are factually correct in saying as such, but there's a few details missing there. But regardless, from that point on, you meet the most important figures in history that are being kept alive in this specific area. They're basically being fed a constant stream of things that cause them dopamine as well as the normal life support stuff. So in each of the three rooms in the main area, you'll find Cleopatra, Alexander the Great, and Plato, each with TV monitors being hooked up to their room, and them being nothing more than a lump of flesh with a CRT for a head. Each one has become more or less a pantomime of what they were in life, with Cleopatra being obsessed with fame and the adoration of people, thus having it constantly be offered to her through this system. Alexander the Great becoming obsessed with war and violence to an almost sexual degree, and being shown a constant stream of live leak videos, I guess. And then there's Plato, who, likes kids. A lot. Gross. Needless to say, all three of them have to die. So that's the main mission. You wander around the underground hospital and find their feeding and life support shutoff levers and send them to the land of wind and ghosts. Before we do that, I mentioned there was a second area, neo-parasitics. It's actually kind of a secret area that is, okay, if you find a bleeding floor stain, you can just hit the wall that's right next to it, and it's usually a secret area, so really wasn't that hard to find. But there is a small note right outside that specific area, and it has an interesting lore document bringing up the Queen of Venus and the King of Mercury, which is kind of cool. Totally has nothing to do with the plot, for sure. Anyway, time to smash the wall open. By the way, there is no way to pacifist run this game, so if you're planning on playing it, don't think that there's any way to avoid just beating the living shit out of everything with hammers. And you're going to hear that sound effect of me hitting them with hammers quite a lot, because you need to smash the majority of the nurses in this hospital, either for the fact that they have a key card on them that is necessary to complete the quest, or you just kind of want to. So yeah, just think of it as being for the good of mankind. Anyhow, welcome to neo-parasitics, where they turn people into parasites, which is an interesting idea. You're greeted by a floating cochlea, who seems pretty chipper to meet you, but you soon find an area that has a decent level of body horror that is something I think about quite a lot. Basically, someone was transformed either willingly or not into a massive tick. This tick is stuck in the wall and fed every day to stay alive and has grown quite large because of this, but it is also pumped with chemicals to keep it happy. As one of the nearby nurses says that if they didn't pump it with these chemicals, it would likely go insane realizing what it was. Yeah, I'm glad the whirlwind that is Vina is coming through here and hammering things to death. Every single one of these people deserve to die, and I think this world needs to be burnt to the ground. Let's, continue. The next section isn't too interesting, just getting key cards, opening the doors to other feeding tubes, and then shutting them off, facing other doctors that live here, and this is where you kind of realize that the combat in this game is jank as hell. It's mostly just backing up and swinging a hammer for a second, then backing up more, as there's no real way to avoid the attacks of oncoming enemies outside of that. After flipping the final switch, I break down the secret wall that's right next to it, and then I go in to try and get the emerald key, as I am a big dick baller and know where everything is beforehand, and not because I looked it up, but, well, this game isn't easy. It is brutal, though. No mid-level checkpoints, though thankfully the levels are what's that? Transient Location. Well, I know what we're doing next. See, transient locations are weird. They are kind of how the game tells a lot of its story, and they tend to randomly pop up when you're on the stage selection screen in between stages. Each one tells a small segment of the background story that you kind of need to understand the game's lore. If you're a Dark Souls player, you may appreciate the fact that none of them make any fucking sense. All of them are very surreal and tend to occupy the same headspace as a Lynchian dream sequence, where it's only kind of making a little bit of sense, and you can kind of piece it together if you squint at it. The first transient location we got is the starting point, and I feel this one is a bit direct, especially if you read the level loading screen, but like, you know, I can't tell you everything yet, but essentially it's an almost religious feeling room with a Thrate lady in it. She is in deep meditation upon the massive open chrysalis in the middle of the room. Speaking with her, she refers to whatever left it as her queen, and she's worried someone will lead this queen astray. Okay, cool. You literally cannot interact with the chrysalis in any way, shape, or form, so that's kind of everything for this location. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on what I think happened here. I think you all can kind of piece it together. We'll talk about it later when we get to the lore wrap-up or whatever bullshit I ended up doing at the end. You kind of know how these long-form videos go. Alright, let's get our run back on that hospital. Smash some nurses, be disgusted with the needless preservation of the social and political elite from the far past that have gone far past their usefulness. Grab the emerald key, hammer, hammer, hammer. You know how it goes. This game, albeit confusing, is weirdly simple from a gameplay perspective, but there it is. The next egg of the earth. Down the hole it goes, and I guess that's it. Yeah, we still don't know what those are for. Relatively simple, methinks. It's pretty funny how quickly you get desensitized to this game's bullshit, but you know, it is what it is. Now that we have a second emerald key, before we do the third and final available level, let's go and check out our progress to the room since we have a new key. It's probably got some cool shit in it, I guess. But just try to navigate past the robot crackheads. Diving in, making our way through this maze, we open the next door, and there's a long hallway with something staring at us at the end, and I do not want any of what that... Oh, it's just a drawing. Okay, cool. I guess that's just me being easily frightened. That's kind of the theme of the next area, really. Drawings, not me being easily frightened. I'm a grown-ass man. I shouldn't... Whatever. There is a bunch of childish drawings all over the wall, and honestly, I kind of fucks with most of them. I like this pink guy. This pink one right here. I like this guy. He seems chill. I'm quite a fan. But, yeah, I guess that's kind of it for now. We'll come back later once we get a third key. So, let's hop into the final level, which is an elementary school. That is, pretty fucking dark, every pony. Let's, just do this. Hopping in, this is in fact an elementary school. This game is a bit brutal, and I am worried about the locations that it might go with this subject material, but I don't know. It's probably going to do a surrealist swerve at the end. It tends to do that. So the school itself is a bit more of a brutalist design. It is straight up just a normal elementary school. cold place where they put the loud kids. I don't know how to describe it, but that line struck a chord with me when I first saw it that I can't fully describe. It makes me feel an emotion I don't fully understand. Let's not dwell on this. I might learn something new about myself that I don't really want to come to grips with right now. Last time I tried to push these kinds of things, it ended up with me realizing that I think Sonic games are kind of cool, which is a dark path to go down in a modern era. I'm just saying, Surge is kind of cool. We navigate the dark and almost oppressive hallways, seeing the auditorium and so on of this school, find the elevator to the secret dungeon underneath this government building, and we make our way into whatever hellscape is next. Okay, this went a direction I wasn't expecting. This is the factory. Under the elementary school is kind of a hyper-industrial plant designed to make pretty unnecessary products with the use of several dozen inhumane business practices. And calling them business practices is a bit of a stretch. It's basically just a boring way of saying, through some arcane process, both horrifying and confusing to me, they found a way to turn useless children into butter knives and egg slicers. Which, okay? The questions of practicality aside, I just gotta ask, why egg slicers? I get the importance of butter knives. I have nothing in the morning if I don't have my jammy toast, but I don't think I've ever seen an egg slicer in person, let alone known someone who's used one before. I feel there is at least a slightly more practical thing you could do with that, like, I don't know, a cheese grater, probably made of the same thing, but I don't know, who am I to judge the practicality of this universe? Me waxing poetic about how best to use the weird slag metal you get from melting down 6th graders aside, this level is confusing, but that's probably because I have the brain of a goddamn amoeba. Upon entering the factory, you're given the central objective, which is, from the head of the factory, who is a giant head. Okay, I get the pun, whatever. He is very depressed, and much like me, after working at Wendy's for a few too many years, I ended up preferring the idea of shuffling off this mortal coil in as dramatic a fashion as possible, rather than continuing to work there. Around the head is a Skull Crush-O-Matic 9000, a particularly powerful head smasher that has too many safeguards put on for it to be used, and by too many I mean 2. So, you have to disable the safeguards, crank that PSI up, and smash this dude's skull into bits. This level is actually kind of weirdly big. Perspective is often an incredibly manipulated concept in games, but this feels huge. It feels like I've spent more time here than any of the other levels, but I could totally be wrong. It might just be the weird winding maze-like corridors, the industrial whirring off in the distance, and the massive empty voids. But it just feels bigger than the others. The enemies are biomechanical nightmares spawned out of Tetsuo the Iron Man's wet dreams. And to top it off, I think the feds are on to us, because upon entering the level, you notice some wanted posters plastered on the wall with Venus' face on them, probably linked with the rapid increase of hammer-related crimes perpetrated in the area, methinks, though knowing this universe, it's probably because she didn't get a permit to wear her hat at night or some shit. So, how this level works is there is a central hub directly in the center of the map where you basically spawn in. There is a path left, there is a path right, and then there's a path directly down the center. That center path leads you to the head. You can't go there. Well, you can go there, but it doesn't really matter. You can go left to take off one of the safeguards, you could go right to turn off one of the safeguards. You gotta go both ways. One way has the PSI machine thingamajig that allows you to crank it up so that the hammer smashes head with the right amount of force. It's simple shit. I do have to say the atmosphere here is downright oppressive, with all the NPCs in the area being these hyper-modified machine men who are the type to work until they die and think that dying while working is the best way to go about it. So basically your average Amazon employee after 5 years in the Bezos punishment pit. The level is an obvious critique on the creation and collection of frivolous items, wasting important resources on things that don't really matter in the long run. on, which I think is kind of cute, but it is a little bit on the nose in this level particularly. That also being said, this is kind of one of the more direct ways this game's story has been shaping up so far, if you couldn't tell. The central theme of this game is rot, not literally, more metaphorically and morally. Every single one of these government buildings is supposed to be a place for the people, but has been contorted into something corrupt, capitalizing on the vulnerable or what they would deem unnecessary resources that are being not used properly, and taking advantage of the lowest rungs of society in order to further some level of unimportant efficiency. This world is rotten to the core, and perhaps smashing it with hammers is the best recourse. Anywho, after getting lost somehow while wandering in a perfect fucking circle, we turn these safeguards off, crank that PSI up as high as it can go. Fun fact, it takes a minimum of 500 PSI to crush a skull. Buddy, I'll tell ya, I'll do a bit more than that. Oh, neat, secret meat wall right next to the Skull Crusher PSI device. Open it up, grab the next emerald key, and then make our way back to the head of the factory, who is a giant head. Hit the button to mercy kill the poor man's. Hell yeah. Turn around to find the next egg of the earth, and down into the pit it goes. So no clue where they are going, but we'll find out soon, I think. Okay, let's go back to the stage selects, and a new option has appeared, the option to descend. We'll elaborate on that in a little bit. We have a few pieces of housekeeping we need to do. So for one, comically enough, you might notice that this started with us saying that this is Psychopomp Gold, because the original Psychopomp was released for free. You can play it. It ends here. This is the last level of the original game, technically. Psychopomp Gold adds a bunch of new content that starts now, and I think that's really interesting. But before we get too lost in the weeds here, let's go to our room and see what happens when we use that new key we found. I can't help but feel this backtracking was intended to be a bit tedious, intentionally, or perhaps my brain is so fried with ADHD that the idea of spending longer than maybe 30 seconds walking through a place that I've already been makes me want to go strip bark off a tree with my teeth. But I digress. Here we are, the most recent room, and you're greeted by some kind of shade making bedroom eyes at you, and it's Libido. You know, Libido. That guy. Libido? That thing that makes you wanna, you know, do that thing. That thing, you know, it's libido. Anyway, I suppose this room has like weird esoteric concepts about organs or basic human functions in them. I wonder what else is in here, like adrenaline or maybe like the pineal gland. Hi? Hello there, anguished flesh homunculus. You look fucking horrifying today. Have anything to say? No, you're just there. Okay, cool. All right, let's just move on, I guess. Let us descend and not think about that. Huh, 2 new stages. Weirdly not dramatic at all. I at least thought there would be a pile of smashed eggs at the bottom of this crevasse, but you know, that's just me being logical in a game that's devoid of it. Hard structures and instructions. Okay, cool. Let's like go in order of appearance and do hard structures. I don't know what it is about this particular opening section for hard structures. The lonely alleyways with not much to them other than a few turns left and right, but the silence and the endless gray gives me that weird liminal feeling. I mean, all the opening sections to the majority of these levels kind of feel that way, but this one just kind of seems to be getting me in a specific way that the others haven't. It's weirdly unnerving, but sure enough, we venture upon the lovely sight of the elevator and go to the familiar gameplay section we've grown to love, which is usually just a surrealist nightmare. And before we actually start hard structure, let me inch my chair closer to you, like I'm about to be a judgmental teacher speaking to you in an after-school program. May I just ask, Carbonic, lovely game you have here, but what the fuck is this? This level doesn't even feel like it's a surrealist nightmare. It's just a fucking nightmare. There is some of the most casually horrifying shit I've ever seen in a game in quite a long ass time, and they're barely modeled. There is literally a piss golem in this level who is not an enemy. This level is bathed in blood red light from that moon over there that is basically going to color your entire vision for this entire 30-minute stretch. scratch. It makes you grow accustomed to that specific color, so when Billy the Piss here or any other NPC show up, it scares the shit out of you because they partially glow green. The giant-ass moths, the eggs, the open sores everywhere, and the soundtrack, which sounds like something a Silent Hill villain would casually fall asleep to. And also, there's a little bit of fridge horror in this with the fact that you find out that graffiti in this universe is just a building trying to speak to you. So when you run down a hallway and find one that just says hungry, yeah, that's not fucking terrifying. They cranked the horror up in my horror puzzle game just for this level, and honestly, it kind of works. The hard shadows, the even further indiscernible enemies, and an even less understandable plot. From what I can tell, this level is basically a pun on the idea of world building. Buildings and houses and shit are literally grown from meaty, fleshy nubs that come from something called the taproot. These are able to grow into full buildings, and they end up being basically just mildly mutated clones of the original root. These giant silkworms here, as they're called, even though they're moths, are parasites who infest buildings as they are growing, and you have to kill them somehow, because that's just the quest. I don't make the rules. I don't think anybody in this game does. You have to collect an insecticide in order to kill them, and if you've played Resident Evil 1, you kind of understand that you got to get a few random chemicals and put them together. So, checklist now. DDT. I guess fuck this world's eagles and shit. Bromine and sulfur. Put them all together in one big old blender, and try not to breathe it in as we spray it on all of the moths, then watch them all die. Yay. This level's design is so confusing, but I genuinely adore it for what it is. It's so uniquely claustrophobic in a game that you spend most of the time underground at this point. This level that takes place outside is pretty spooky. This level that takes place outside is very goddamn spooky and very, very tight. Hell, just looking out in the distance to see some weird bulbous octopus staring at the evil eye moon, yeah, that's just such a weird horror vibe. And don't worry, we never find out what it is. So yeah, kill the moths, loosen up some threads so that we can get the 4th emerald key, and then go back to find the egg. But something this time is different because you travel to the Great Taproot. As I mentioned, this root right here is the thing that they clone all of the buildings out of, and because it exists, other buildings can. Think of it as like the heart of the world that keeps pumping blood into the extremities that are skyscrapers. And if something were to happen with this, all buildings would cease to exist, so we have to be very careful with it. I can only see this leading to good things. Anyhow, match that guy for good luck, get the next egg of the earth, then head back to the main menu to use the next emerald key. I'm just gonna cut to the chase and not bait the hook with any cute jokes. The next visit to your room kind of blows. It's literally just a big empty space, a bridge to the next room, and what looks like a sentient, sassy Joy-Con who says you look ugly. First of all, rude. Second of all, let's just do the next level. We're kind of close to the end here. This is the second to last level. It's sort of. We'll cover the bits and bobs after that. But instruction. Okay, cool. I assume things are going to be ramping up, and immediately my suspicions are at least relatively confirmed. The area you run through to get to the elevator even has Vina a bit on edge, a little shaken up. The rumbling wall tubes are unsettling and build off the dark gloom of the last level very well. So you'd assume that this level is going to be pretty much the same, and it's going to be a bit of an amplification, cranking up the horror elements of the game rather than focusing on anything weirder. Okay, going the other way now. This level looks awesome. It's not scary in the slightest, and out of every section in the game, this one aesthetically is my favorite. It's almost glamorous lighting, it's weird floating alleles everywhere, the weird ideas of genetic predeterminism. It's all just so appealing to me on a visual and aesthetic level. This level is also one of the most interactive in the game, with a decently complex multi-step puzzle to get the egg of the earth at the end. It's just unfortunate that this level also sucks dirty assholes. This is the the only level I actually did not have fun with, which is such a shame. Two main reasons as to why this level hurts me on an emotional level. The first one is the puzzle to complete it is, although straightforward-ish, it's a bit overtooled. It kind of reminds me of the retro survival horror type puzzles where you grab a key to open a door to get another key to open a latch that allows you to learn a key code in order to open a door that allows you to complete the puzzle. It's just a bunch of busy work running around the level, which wouldn't be that big of a deal if the second thing that makes this level doesn't exist, but it does. So it compounds with the fact that this level is the only one in the game that has an enemy that has a traditional ranged attack. Now look at me. Look deep into my goddamn eyes and you tell me, does this game look like it has good movement to you? No, it doesn't. And does it look like bullet dodging is going to be easy or fun? Even if they do the same amount of damage as someone haphazardly flicking a toothpick at you, it's not fun to try and dodge out of the way. Though I guess breaking the pattern of walking backwards and swinging at it with a hammer is nice, but whatever. The next level, the final level, does it way better. There are a few ranged enemies in that, but they have weird, esoteric... You'll see, whatever, we'll get there. Snag the emerald key, collect DNA from the big teratoma zygote, find out its genetic code, unlock the DNA plunger so that you can stab it with the incorrect sequence based on the DNA, and choose the wrong sequence of codes so that it dies when you inject it with something that doesn't match. Fun fact, I was actually a vertebrate paleontologist research assistant for like a year and had to know a lot of genetics just to operate in a day-to-day capacity, just because, you know, phylogenetics is such a weird science, but it was hellish and the write-ups were annoying, and that is all I have to share about this. Regardless, I bring this up because I kind of knew the solution to the puzzle early, but I just had to follow the game's paces, I guess. You kill the teratoma thing that's congesting your path, and congrats, you've killed DNA. All of it. Every last strand of DNA is now dead. Aside from you, because you don't need DNA. Duh. Look at you, you're a complete specimen made out of something that does not require coding. Total unit. God, this game is confusing, and I thought I was over it. I'm not. I thought it was going to get easier, but it isn't. It's actually just getting worse, and I feel a migraine starting to infuse itself with the back of my skull. Either way, we grab one more egg of the earth, throw that shit down the pit, and return to the stage selection screen only for one more option, to descend once more. And I'll tell you now, there is only one more true level to play through. There's a lot more to cover, but once we click descend, there's only one true level left that you need to complete in order to beat the game. Let's save the Emerald Key visit because it's not really worth mentioning at this point and just go to the next level. It's just not a room with a lot in it. And by not a lot, I mean it's just a room made of meat with a dude fidgeting in it. So we descend to the final spot of the game and see symbols. This is it, ladies and germs. But we've all been waiting for. The final task is at hand. Perhaps after this, I will finally know what the hell is actually going on. But knowing this game's track record, probably not. Dropping character here for a little bit just to say, symbols is different. It is probably the most serious level in the game, and there is a good reason for it. You can tell this level is a bit different because when I tried to look up any information about any of the enemies, there aren't anything that's in this level. Even the wiki doesn't really know what to say, though I feel like that's a bit of a commonality for the entirety of this weird game. See, Symbols is the culmination of what Psychopomp's second half has been building up to. We have been dismantling the infrastructures of this world, breaking it down piece by central piece, and killing everything that gets in our way. We don't truly know why, but I like to think it has something to do with the rot that has set into the core fundamentals of this world. We have destroyed the buildings, we have destroyed DNA, we have smashed so many things to pieces, but a wise man once said, you can kill a man, but you can't kill an idea. This is what Symbols is. You are killing the ideas that make up the fundamentals of existence. Going through this level, you find out that there are 4 universal constants put in place to essentially create life and the universe. Flesh, people, concepts, and symbols. These four together make up everything in perceivable reality. I'm extrapolating a bit here as it's a bit complicated, but you as an agent of destruction and chaos are showing up to kill the physical representations of these ideas, to break away the final barriers to your objective, which we will get to. The physical representations of these ideas are the paragons. They are soft, malleable creatures protected by some of the weirdest and most unique enemies you will fight in this game. You could almost call them boss fights, but I guess that doesn't really quantify it, as they aren't too difficult. They're just weird and have immediately unique gameplay differences that make them more of an engaging interaction than just something running at you and you attacking it. But we're skipping ahead a bit too much. This level starts immediately in a way that throws you for a loop, because it looks almost identical in the kind of byway area that you have to get through to get to the elevator. It looks similar to a level that you started earlier in the game on the top layer, but once you get to what you think is the elevator down, reality strips away to reveal you are at the bottom. There is no more down. Symbols is massive. It is a huge fucking level. The amount of space you have to cross in order to actually get to where you need to go is pretty huge and takes a decent amount of time. Its Cyclopean level design has elements from across the game. The weird art installations and dangerous enemies. One by one, you kill the paragons that you end up meeting and find one last emerald key, and this is the last one. There is such an interesting level of finality to Symbols. It is kind of the perfect final level to this game. This level takes a long time to get through, so you gotta work for it. You gotta work for that ending, combining movement puzzles, traps, enemy placement. Fuck. You sly dog. You got me monologuing. You know how I said this level was long as balls? Well, congrats. It's where I got one of the few game overs just because I got caught up by one of these things. What is this thing even called? What are any of the enemies in this game called? One second, let me look this shit up. A gut wolf. That's what this enemy is named. It's called a gut wolf. Okay, cool. Whatever. I'm not tilted. I'm totally not upset at the fact that I had to repeat like 20 minutes of gameplay when I was done a level pretty much 90% of the way. It's fine, great, fantastic. I love movement puzzles in a first-person game like this. They're great. Okay, run that back. Let's do this. Just imagine another monologue about how cool this level is as I go through the whole thing again. And yes, I have to get the emerald key a second time. I guess it is a little bit fair as there are healing pools spread out through the level, but man, this sucks. Anyway, all four paragons dead. The gate opened, and with that, we finally have the last of the eggs of the earth and dropped it down the mine shaft where all bad eggs go, I guess. We are left with only one option left. The entrance. This is basically the goal line, not so much a level as it is just kind of a final interactable. This is where Vina has been trying to get to this entire game. Let's not fuck around here and just hop into it. Before I do, a little context for one little gameplay thing. I haven't highlighted this much, but before every level, the loading screen has two sections, a gameplay tip and a real-world tip. The gameplay tips are usually actually useful pieces of information, like how some enemies in the game only attack if you have your flashlight on, while the real-world tips are the game's attempt at world building, and every time I read them, it stresses me out. This world is a living nightmare, and it stresses me out to think about the occupants living in it. I bring this up because once you enter the entrance section, you get a small dialogue exchange of Vina being cryptic before a real-world tip. There is a Mariana Trench under every town. Okay, cool. I'm not gonna think about that forever. Oh, we're underwater now. Cool. Okay, so we're not really underwater for that long. It's not like an underwater section. I mean, it is, but like it only lasts for like maybe less than 2 minutes, because this is when you get to the center of the earth. Oh, hey, it's all the eggs. How's it going, guys? It's been a minute. Enjoying your little party? Yeah, I can tell. I can hear the schoolboy Q from over here. Okay, all jokes aside, what happens once you reach the center is so incomprehensible that, I'll be honest, even after we do a lore dissection, I'm not 100% certain what's going on here, but like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to fully explain it, so I'm just gonna let the majority of this cutscene play in its entirety. It is something. And there she goes, flying away and shit. And yeah, that's the ending. You get a few kind words from the developer, and an admittedly a really cool alternate title theme with lyrics and Vina singing in the background. You are sent back to the main menu, see that, and that is Psychopomp. Sort of. You see, here is where things actually get a bit clearer, and that's the first time I've been able to say this, as I have to elaborate on a few things that I have been casually avoiding this entire game. See, remember those transient locations and a few of the notes mentioning something like the Queen of Venus and the King of Mercury? Well, there's a lot of those transient locations, and there's a lot of those notes. Not only that, there are ephemeral locations, abhorrent locations, and even a few forbidden locations, I believe. Each one telling a background story to the game to give you an idea of what the world building of this universe is. And it allows us to actually piece together something a little understandable, which is, I didn't see that coming. See, in the beginning, there were two gods for this galaxy, the Queen of Venus and the King of Mercury, one represented by a dragonfly and the other one represented by a beetle. These two individuals are responsible for the creation myth of this universe, I think. The queen that the Thraits mention in a lot of these secret levels, yeah, that's the Queen of Venus, who was locked away in a sort of rebirthing cycle, being stuck in a cocoon and then constantly shedding skin to grow larger, newer, and just renewing themselves. You also learn that time isn't exactly stable, with you jumping around quite a lot. With a level you enter that is kind of a museum exhibit discussing Thraits, humans, and humans, but with a capital H, and they all are described as having gone truly extinct years ago. And I know that we don't really see humans, or we could call them humans, but we definitely see Thraits. So yeah, I don't know if they're just lying to me, but that museum is uncomfortable to look at, so whatever. Some of these transient locations are just memes, but some are small lore tidbits that help you kind of understand more about where the game is trying to get you mentally. Another interesting thing to mention is that astronomy is incredibly important in this game, as if you examine the sky, you'd think me pointing out that there's a fucked up planet in the sky is a joke. No, you are not on Earth. You might not even be in this solar system that you and me are occupying. You may just be on some weird planet in a far, far away galaxy. Both Venus and Mercury are considered a mythological location. This all comes to a head when you collect all of those emerald keys and put all of your notes together. So let's do the final visit to our room. Unlock all of the doors and see where it goes. See, navigating the labyrinth, you kind of piece together that this game might have some bits that are in specifically Vina's head, but the universe's logic is internally consistent to some degree. Some of Vina's room probably is just a manifestation of her weird psyche. Looking at you, libido. But once you finally get to the final door, you unlock essentially just a memory. Going into this final room, you unlock a secret level simply called Mercury and Venus, which is a shaded garden, a forest with no enemies. It is peaceful and actually really relaxing. You navigate through what feels like a hedge maze with no real threat to see in sight, and then you see two children, polar opposites of each other. One, a radiant, bright light that seems to cast its glowingness on everything around it, and the other one, a black smog eating away at the light around them. You get a text-only dialogue interaction between them once you walk into them. One, manic, a little excitable, who loves dragonflies and hammers. The other, depressive, a little downtrodden, loves nails and beetles. These are the Queen of Venus and the King of Mercury, hammer and nail. I thought the hammer was just a joke. Nah, dude, the symbolism in this game kind of goes deep. This game isn't just lol random bullshit all the time. It's actually got a kind of understandable, logical through line as long as you're willing to meet it halfway. Well, sort of. Well, I'll give my theory at the end as to what I can do to explain this game, but here is where things get interesting. See, once you see the Mercury and Venus cutscene, go back to the main menu again. If you continue the game, you can now see the game's true ending. If you couldn't figure it out now, Vina is the Queen of Venus, and I've just been calling her Vina because it's shorter and easier, and also doesn't spoil the ending of the game a little bit. And also, it seems like the majority of the fan base kind of calls her that. She severs her connection to her helmet, or whoever was controlling the helmet, she severs it from them. The helmet then tries to find yet another connection point, and thus you connect to the only other person who has a similar style of helmet. In the epilogue, you connect to the King of Mercury. Can we get away with calling him Murray? Yeah, I'm gonna do that. You literally play as the King of Mercury for the rest of the epilogue, as this is a preview for Psychopomp 2. So, to give you a brief breakdown of what happens, the King of Mercury is asked to work with the King of all dogs. Remember that friendly face? They need to stop some ever-present threat, who just so happens to be the Queen of Venus, who is now fully awoken and a god again. The King of Dogs is manipulating the still not fully awakened Murray in order to accomplish some unknown goal. And this level takes place on a different planet with a different race of bug people who worship the King of Mercury rather than the Thraits who worship the Queen of Venus. Kind of cool, right? The King of all dogs wants you to collect his 3 associates, each with a weird theme to them, and you meet up to discuss what to do next. The fact that there are 4 of them suggests something odd, but we'll discuss that after. The sandy terrain of this land is very different from the concrete hellscape of the game you just played through. So it's kind of cool to see something new. The enemies are pushovers since there isn't really any healing items here, and also shout out to you now having a new weapon, the nail. It's a neat detail. With all 4 fellas united, the game ends with a tease to Psychopomp 2, which will be released at some point. Okay, so let's break a few things down in as logical a fashion as possible here. The first question is, does any of this make any sense? And the answer is basically me shrugging my shoulders and going wide-eyed while rubbing the bridge of my nose, going, yeah. It's like watching a David Lynch film. You can't operate on real-world logic. You have to see how this universe operates and adjust your line of thinking to kind of tune into that. Does all rust in this world not come as a result of the process of oxidation and instead come from 3 sentient rust mothers lost in some basement somewhere? Rock on. You kind of gotta meet this game in the middle. So with all that in mind, there is a reference earlier in the game when you go to one of those migrating moving levels sections, the Forbidden Location library. It references something called the Caldman 4. 4 giant light objects that are traveling at blazing fast speeds in the universe, and when they pass by, everything behind them goes dark. The scientists infer that it's probably just an optical illusion, but I think with how this game ends, I can honestly say it's probably not that. The King of all dogs and his 3 cohorts are obviously godlike beings that are trying to do something evil. They are manipulating the only entities either matching them in power or are more powerful than them to kill each other so that they can do evil shit. The King of Mercury and the Queen of Venus got disturbed in their natural cycle of cocoon, rebirth, and rejuvenation, and thus are kind of mentally not there and easily manipulated. There's an ephemeral location that shows armies of giant clay monsters that are referred to as waiting for the Queen, their heads kind of resembling the child Vena makes in the center of the earth, so perhaps her powers come not from her being a giant bug monster and instead come from somewhere else. This galaxy is obviously not Earth and does not operate off of traditional physics, and no one here is actually truly human. Hell, dogs probably aren't even here, so the King of all dogs is just kind of a phony, I guess.
Fabrication.
A lot of the narrative I have been stating throughout this dissection is reinforced by the phone calls, which I think is incredibly important to discuss. Basically, the phone operates by you typing in words through the numbers that are there. You create 4-letter words, and I'll save you the trouble of hearing all of them because yes, they are actually fully voice acted all by the same person, usually with a different voice filter, and it's weird. But if I had to guess, most of these, if not all of them, are from the perspective of you calling the Caldman 4 or a hotel operator where the King of Mercury is currently at. As a lot of these are people complaining about dogs as well as bugs, which are kind of a common thing in this game, especially for the godly entities. But they also talk about a boatload of shit that I didn't think would be brought up, like mantises, which is not a bug mentioned in the game outside of this. We have dragonflies, we have beetles, but we do not have mantises, and I like to think that this is kind of a tease for another god that was like the non-gender specific monarchical figure of Uranus or some shit. I'll probably call them Sheen, as it would be a bit of a funny name, methinks. But the phone calls mostly consist of the Caldman 4 plotting to dethrone and destroy the universe or some shit. I think we only have half of the story, and I'm probably wrong about most of what I just said. But if the blood coming out of my ears and the steadily worsening migraine that I have at the front of my brain are saying anything, it's that I enjoyed the absolute hell out of this game. It feels like someone's uncompromised artistic vision. This game had to be made this way and no other way, because this was this person's specific, ultra, mega unique vision. And I think it really shows the passion that they have for the development of this pure insanity. This game is so obtuse. First-person horror, tank-controlled puzzle game. I feel like that's not even a genre. I feel like I just uttered a witch's curse, and like if I turn behind me, I'm pretty sure my furniture is going to be goddamn floating. But if you do not like that style of gameplay, you're gonna bounce. This game is not easy to like. Hell, trying to explain this to someone as like a game that they should try is incredibly difficult. Go ahead and try to describe this game to people without bringing up how bizarre it is, and you'll kind of figure out what I mean. Gameplay alone, it's just so hard to understand. It's just a downright Sisyphean task just to even bring it up in conversation naturally. I think that we only have half of the story, but even with half of what we have, I think it's fantastic. And when Psychopomp 2 comes out, I'm going to play the shit out of that. Okay, hi, hello, this is me again from the future, I guess, in this case. Arthur, popping in just to state my existential dread and leaving it up to my editor here to insert this somewhere that makes sense, or make it as jarring as humanly possible. Also, like, thank you, Ted. If you get a chance, you should go sub to their channel. She's more talented than I'll ever be. And I couldn't have got this done without her. But also, Kalani. Kalani edited the first major segments of this video, and they're also really, really talented. You probably know them as someone who I stream with a lot, but they did a lot of work on this as well. But yeah, I had some extra housekeeping to do that I forgot to add into this in my initial run, so I'm gonna just sloppily throw this in as a last-minute addition. I remembered I forgot to cover the phone call, so I booted up the game one last time, and I noticed there was a new level that I didn't even know existed. It was an ending after the epilogue about Vina becoming a giant space bug, after the other epilogue about the King of Mercury doing whatever the Caldman 4 want, and even after we found out what the Caldman 4 were. I just want to say, a third epilogue, friends, I just want to rest. I need sleep. I am tired, and this game requires a lot of brain power to actually put together its clues. So let's speed round the final level that's kind of not really a level, because it's kind of interesting. The actual for really's final bonus mega mystery content level is just called Vision, and it's more just a straight path walking simulator type of level. You don't really have access to your HUD, which is funny because even though you don't have the ability to click on your hammer, if you know the hotkeys, you can just access your hammer anyway, and you don't see the animation, but you can still hear the sound. I think that's kind of funny. But you crawl your way through the monologue of these framework beings who are basically talking about karmic balance, about how there is no real balancing as in plus and minuses. There is only good and bad karma. Both accumulate over your life. There is talk about rebirth. There is talk about apotheosis into godhood, and how it is the job of who, after eons of rebirthing, take control of the universe and reshape it to be better. It is basically referring to a lot of what I have been inferring and discussing about in this entire video involving Vina and Murray, which, by the way, the reason I have been calling her Vina is that she's the Queen of Venus, but her actual honest-to-God name is, it's this? Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, because I can barely speak English on my good days. I cannot speak this language here, which I don't even know. Proto-Sumerian? Yeah, maybe, who knows? But yeah, if you ever wanted to know more about the sort of candid framework of this universe, it does point to the whole godly rebirth thing I mentioned before. The last thing I actually wanted to bring up is not even that important, is basically just when you beat the game, you see everything there is to do and you do everything. You unlock the ability to do third-person mode, which is fucking awesome. It's incredibly jank and probably makes the game a lot more difficult than it actually needs to be, but you get to see what Vina has looked like this entire game and have her stare at you, which is fun. Doesn't really change gameplay, but can be fun, I guess. But anyhow, I'm glad you all sat through this. I hope it was worth it, and for lack of a better way of putting it, I'm back! And if luck would have it, I should already have the next video mostly underway by the time you see this one. I hope you all enjoyed this video and are willing to stick around. I want to keep talking about obscure horror games and horror media like this and take you on these little journeys. I am incredibly passionate about them. As far as things go from here, I wish you all a happy Halloween. I appreciate your patience, and thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful night.